Okay, so I'd like to think a large portion of my audience watches the occasional anime, at least that's what some of the comments lead me to believe. But I admit that could just be the vocal minority. As much as anime has gained massive popularity in recent years, there is still a crazy amount of people that don't know about it or simply don't care. And it's hard to gauge that number, especially when you're constantly in it. Like you meet some rando in the wild and it's like, you don't know what anime is? But no, they do exist, and this video is for them, specifically for the writer side of it. There is so much that anime can lead you to discover about writing, especially if you're used to Western style fiction. So if you don't know about it, or you've heard the term but it's still this amorphous thing in your head, for the uninitiated, this is me making a case. And if you're already a proper weeb, just sit back and enjoy this quick pseudo love letter to the medium. And that's the first thing actually, anime is a medium, not a genre. Anime is just simply animation that is originating from Japan. Actually, a lot of people get bent out of shape about what qualifies or doesn't qualify as anime. Like only this art style specifically is anime, or only this method of animation counts. Most people get placated when you pull out the Japan origin argument, but then there are some shows that are very clearly heavily inspired by anime and are anime in everything except for name. Some shows that don't have a clear origin one way or another, like a Western IP with a Japanese studio or vice versa. Basically though, with anime, you kind of know it when you see it, and sometimes you see it but can't really say it because some people might get mad at you. Welcome to the anime fandom. We are largely sane here. Largely. But anime really is so diverse. I think a lot of people gatekeep the definition because they don't want someone reducing this thing that they love to just a cartoon, even though, and don't crucify me for this, it technically is. I think it comes from the Western perception of cartoons being just for kids, and if you're in that camp, I urge you to dissuade yourself of that sentiment very quickly. Anime isn't just the battle shonen ones that get really popular. It isn't just the movies that reach a wide variety of audiences. It is every genre you can think of and more. Fantasy, sci-fi, thriller, horror, action, crime, comedy, satire. There is an entire freaking genre of people getting portal fantasy to another world by way of a truck. Truckan is unironically my favorite inciting incident trope. Want wholesome anime characters doing wholesome anime things? We've got you covered. Want to experience the existential dread of a universe that is largely unbothered by the speck of dust that is your reality? We've got you covered there too. When confronted with the anime is just for kids statement, a lot of anime fans like to default to the goriest anime they can think of and be like, yeah, is that for kids, bitch? Which is honestly kind of valid. However, I like to go to that variety, how there are so many different stories being told for so many different people, and it's an entirely different world of fiction than the one you're probably used to. Actually, anime genres are usually categorized by the audience it's targeting. I mentioned shonen anime, which I think literally translates to young boy, which would follow stories that might appeal to a young boy, with themes surrounding epic quests, the male lead, action, and battle. But guess what? You don't have to be a young boy to watch and enjoy those shows. Shows like Naruto and Bleach will always have a special place in my heart. Then there's shoujo anime, young girls. A lot of people grew up on Sailor Moon. Fruits Basket is one of my favorite anime. All my homies love Chihaya Furu. Seinen anime with more serious and complex themes. Sports anime that have managed to distill pure, unadulterated hype and inject it into your veins through a screen. I still don't know how they do it. Again, variety. But I also like to go into the deeper storying that anime is capable of because of the fact that it exists in this medium. And if I manage to convince someone from the anime is just for kids camp, they usually jump over to the, well, it can't tell stories as good as insert currently running popular live action TV show or some classic novel. And ooh, this one, don't vex me. You people should not vex me. There is so much depth, it's not even funny. Aside from books, which will forever be my one true love, this is the medium I have experienced the most life-changing stories from. No, genuinely, fiction that might have altered my brain chemistry and I couldn't experience them in any other place except for anime. One Piece. If you're not watching One Piece, you're objectively wrong. End of story. It is one of the best currently running epic fantasy series of any medium. Fight me with your words, I will die on this hill. Granted, pretty fucking easy hill to die on. Haseki no Kuni, probably in my top 5 anime and manga. And no, it's not because rock waifus, the atmosphere, the tone is absolutely immaculate, exploring human nature through an Earth so removed from it that the dominant species is a collective of microorganisms that form into crystals. It will drag you through the emotional gutter. And it's not so much that these stories can't be told in other mediums, it's that they're amplified because they exist in anime. Some feelings you just can't port over to a live action, for instance, without it feeling over dramatic or losing the animated flavor that really made it work, no matter how well executed. Like take Attack on Titan, for example. It is so intense, damn near every emotion is cranked up to 112, and it would not be Attack on Titan without that. Yet imagining an actor trying to go that hard on any one of those emotions feels comical to the point that it pulls me so out of the story. Anime is not without its caveats though. I mean, no medium is immune to some problems. There is the cultural disconnect. Some stories rely on your understanding of the culture to really connect with it, but you don't have that because, you know, you're not Japanese. Most times it's just a scene or a piece of dialogue or a joke, but it could be the entire story. There is also the over-sexualization in some shows and genres. Japan is just weird sometimes, dude, and sometimes that weirdness is intertwined in what is otherwise a really good story. Like, I'm just trying to watch my show, why are you shoving titties in my face? The worst part is when you get desensitized and you recommend a show to a normie friend and they're like, what the hell are you watching? I'm sorry, okay? It's all that plus a couple of other things you pick up as you keep watching. I like to call them anime-isms, not to mention the unspoken H word. If you don't know what the H word is, I'd like to keep this video monetized, so stay innocent, you sweet summer child. But despite all of it, why do I still champion this medium? Answer: I genuinely don't know. Making this video, I realized I never asked myself this question before. I could give you reasons for individual shows, but I never really considered the whole. Is it because I absolutely adore animation and wanted a slew of stories the likes of which the West is only just now catching up to? Potentially. Is it the eclectic mix of storytelling formats, characters, and plots? Or the over-the-topness of emotions that seems to crystallize perfectly? The heart-thumping energy it can bring, the still silence of indescribable beauty. Oh shit, look at me getting poetic. But again, I can't tell you exactly what. The best words I can string together to make my case is that it has this intangible quality. This thing that you might not even notice until you're deep in it, and when it clicks, you feel it in every fiber of your being. When you watch an anime that animes, you get it almost immediately. As a writer, chase that in whatever medium it appears in. I mean, have your preferences, I'll fully sanction that any day, but like I said, anime still plays second fiddle to books for me. But get confused by a piece of extraordinary fiction and then try to alleviate that feeling. That is one true way I know how to grow as a writer. So for the love of everything fiction, please go watch some anime. Also, this is a new format I'm testing, the storytelling tidbits. I don't know if you'll even notice a difference depending on how I choose to edit this, but in my head, there is a difference and that's what matters. I'm trying to make these quick sub 5-minute-ish videos, just me talking to the camera, vibes, maybe a few pop-ups to illustrate my point, a little less orchestrated than my usual stuff. I think that's the right word. And also a different lens of discussion, mostly because I blew up for a type of content I absolutely love making about world building, magic, fantasy adjacent type stuff. And honestly, it's my favorite type of content to do. But I also just love having discussions about basic writing craft, honing in on a specific media, videos that could be shorts but have a little more oomph to them, stuff like that. But the numbers clearly show you all love the former, and I put in just as much effort into the latter, which from a business standpoint, hey, I can't wait for one of these videos to blow up and for me to question my life decisions. But I have to start thinking about that type of stuff. What it ultimately comes down to though is that I have a lot more to say about fiction that doesn't necessarily fit into the style of elaborate 15-minute videos. I decided I'm going to say them anyway. Okay, bye.